If an old man named Yi Zhonghai had a biological son and didn't have to constantly plan for elderly care, what would be the story of this courtyard house? What kind of story will happen when Yi Feng, a college student from the 21st century, became the old son of Yi Zhonghai in the 1950s and 1960s? Note: Yi Jiabao is unaware of the plot of the courtyard house, full of emotions not harsh, flowing slowly, with golden fingers but not thick. The protagonist Yi Jiabao's family, the protagonist Yi Jiabao's family, the protagonist Yi Jiabao's family. I have said important things 3 times. This is about the subtle changes in Yi Zhonghai's family and courtyard after having a son. In the early stages, it was mostly written from Yi Zhonghai's perspective, but when Yi Jiabao grows up, he will use his perspective more. Chapter 1. Siheyuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In 1949, the People's Republic of China was established, and at that time, China, which had experienced war and turmoil, was riddled with wounds and was in a state of great waste waiting to be revitalized. Economic backwardness and social poverty were the main problems faced in the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China. So afterwards, factories spread out one by one in a grand manner throughout the country, and the most glorious slogan of the workers was the slogan of that era. For 9 cities, also designated as the national capital after the establishment of the People's Republic of China, was formerly known as Beiping and later renamed Beijing. As the capital of the 49 cities, factories are the most grand, among which the Lu family, a wealthy businessman known as the Lu half-city before the founding of the People's Republic of China, opened the Lu steel rolling plant, which is quite famous in the 49 cities. Number 95 Luogu Lane, south of 49th City, this is a 3-courtyard house. It is said to have been a residence of a certain prince, but it died early in the morning. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, it was taken back by the state. Nowadays, most of the houses arranged here are for the families of the employees of the steel rolling mill. As noon approached, the honking of the workers at Dongqing steel rolling plant could be faintly heard after work. Soon, waves of people scattered from the plant into the streets and alleys, wearing uniform blue work uniforms, which were extremely simple. At the beginning of the founding of the People's Republic of China, there was a shortage of food, and it was good for most people to fill their stomachs. Everyone had a yellow skin from hunger on their faces, but labor was the most glorious, and workers were the most glorious. Their spirits were good, and compared to before the founding of the People's Republic of China, everyone was full of hope for a better future. As for why does the factory have a cafeteria and the price is cheaper than outside, so there are still so many workers leaving the factory? It's not about the food crisis yet. Everyone lives with their families. Although there are few meat dishes in the cafeteria, some stir-fried dishes are willing to be filled with oil. For dishes with a bit of oil and water, people often use lunch boxes to bring them back and eat them together with their families. A few aunties were chatting at the gate, waiting for their old men. They didn't have a job and were chatting while pasting cardboard boxes. They also earned a little income every month. This time, a man with an inch in his 40s approached with a lunchbox, and one of the aunties quickly got up. "Sisters, stop talking. My man is back." "Okay, my men are probably about the same." Several women parted ways, and Wu Zuelan stepped forward. "Master, why is it so early today?" The man, also known as Yi Zhonghai, handed over the lunchbox. Taiqing helped prepare the meal in advance. The factory's production was good a few days ago, and today the cafeteria made pork stewed noodles. Taiqing was also a resident of a quadrangle courtyard. Originally named Daqing, he changed his name to Taiqing after the founding of the People's Republic of China. He worked as a chef in the cafeteria of a steel rolling mill, and Yi Zhonghai had a good relationship with him. When he had time, he would also help him prepare dishes in advance. "There is meat, just a little white flour last month. I made you 2 white flour mantou." Wu Zuelan's gaze lit up as she listened. The two of them walked into a courtyard, which was divided into a front courtyard, a main courtyard, and a back courtyard. The Yi family is in the middle courtyard, and in the past, they had to pass through the front courtyard. Now, when Yi Zhonghai passes through the front courtyard, he will see the previously vacant house on the left, which will make the sound of knocking and bumping. Has a new resident moved in? Yi Zhonghai is strange because most of the workers here are from the steel rolling mill, and he hasn't heard anyone move in at the steel rolling mill. I heard it's a teacher from the children's school. The man in his family is no different from the head of the family by a few years. With his wife and 3 sons, there's still one in his belly. Wu Zuelan explained the situation and lowered her tone as she thought of the other party's children. She has been married to Yi Zhonghai for so many years, and now that men are almost 40, she has not given birth to a son or a daughter. I see, let's go back to the house and have dinner. Yi Zhonghai shook his head and didn't say anything. He is 30.8 this year, in this era of many sons and many blessings. At this age, he has no children, and he is also anxious. However, the two of them went for a physical examination. His wife Wu Zuelan was injured by hunger and cold in her early years, and has been taking care of her for the past few years. The doctor said there is not a chance, so wait. The Yi family's house in the middle courtyard is on the right side. According to the previous rules, this courtyard was the main courtyard, and the rooms were slightly larger. There was also a small house of about 10 square meters next to a room of about 40 square meters in his house as a kitchen. When the two returned home, the mantu buns prepared by Wu Zuelan in the kitchen were still warm, which would be valuable for food. Ordinary people in Siheyuan city often eat bonzi noodles. Noodles and even white noodles are occasionally eaten, which is still conditional. It is a problem to almost eat enough. There is a table in the kitchen with 2 white flour mantu and 4 steamed buns. Yi Zhonghai works hard. He has a big appetite and needs 2 white flour mantu and 2 steamed buns. Opening the lunch box, the pork stewed noodles actually have only a few pieces of meat, but the dishes with oily water are full of fragrance these days. The two of them took a deep breath, and with their chopsticks holding the food, they started to eat. Madam, you also eat meat. No need, as the head of the family, you're tired of work. You can eat. Yi Zhonghai didn't refuse to see this, but she handed over the white flour mantu. Wu Zuelan was also moved by the warm scene. They went through the most difficult period with each other. Now the days of the founding of the People's Republic are getting better and better. It would be nice to have another child on this warm occasion. Pop pop pop. The warm occasion didn't last long, and the heavy knocking of the door reminded me. Yi Zhonghai, why are you afraid that your sister-in-law won't be able to snatch your good food when you close the door and eat it? A slightly sharp female voice with a strong aura sounded outside the door, and Wu Zuelan couldn't help but burst in. Middle-aged women have a slightly chubby physique, which is also rare in this era, indicating that the conditions are still good. But that was before, this was the daughter-in-law of the Jia family across from Yi Zhonghai. Previously, Jia's salary in the factory was even higher than that of Yi Zhonghai. Oh, by the way, according to the principle of distribution according to work mentioned above, workers with better skills pay more and earn higher wages. Yi Zhonghai's salary is over 800,000 yuan per month, which is already very high compared to most workers earning around 100,000 to 200,000 yuan. It can be imagined that the Jia family had good conditions back then. Unfortunately, brother Jia had an accident in the factory 2 years ago, leaving behind Jia Zhang and his son Jia Dongshu. Sister Jia, isn't it not good for you to just barge in like this? Wu Zuelan frowned and saw Jia Zhang staring closely at the pork stewed noodles on the table after entering. However, today was a rare day and she didn't feel like taking a few bites. This is also well known in the courtyard. Since brother Jia left, Jia Zhang has borrowed a lot of money from orphans and widows to eat and take in the courtyard. But who is not difficult? Wu Zuelan knows through her own elders that brother Jia went to the factory and received a considerable amount of compensation. As soon as Jia Dongxiu reaches adulthood, he will also go to the factory to receive work, which will bring in more income. How could he still be so shameless and shameless? In the past 2 years, Jia Zhang's reputation in the courtyard has not been very good. Everywhere, it's all neighbors. Jia Zhang wiped her saliva. She came today for something. Yi Zhonghai, when you see Jia Gu here, our relationship is also good. Jia Zhang began to develop old feelings. Yi Zhonghai noticed her abnormal behavior and thought that Jia Dongxiu was 18 years old this year. He seemed to guess what she wanted to say and simply asked, "Sister-in-law, just say what you want to say." Chapter 2. The Yan family moves here. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Hehe, Zhonghai, don't you think Dongxiu will take over this year? I just thought that old Jia used to say that you have good skills. Why don't you take my family's Dongxiu as an apprentice? Dongxiu is filial. You see, your family doesn't have any children now, maybe they will go bankrupt. After you take Dongxiu as an apprentice, Dongxiu will provide you with retirement. Jia Zhang, how did you speak? Wu Zuelan heard her say that she was staring at her from nowhere, and Yi Zhonghai also frowned. Jia Zhang realized that she had said the wrong thing and quickly pretended to say something. Pooh, I was wrong. I come from the countryside and don't have much culture, so I don't speak much. It's my fault. Zhonghai, Dongxiu, you watched him grow up. He just entered the field and is unfamiliar with his hometown. If you take my Dongxiu as my disciple, he will definitely remember your kindness. Jia Zhang's mouth chattered incessantly. It was nothing more than that in the past, Lao Jia had a good relationship with him and took care of him. They were orphans and widows, and in the future, Jia Dongxiu would provide him with retirement care and so on. Yi Zhonghai seemed to ponder for a while before speaking. Sister Jia, you know there are only a few types of workers in this factory. Dong Su, that child, looks smart. Why don't we go to the factory first and see where he has talent, and then make plans? When Lao Jia first entered the factory, he would have been a blacksmith. It was only after switching to a fitter that he achieved success. Dongxiu, this child, still needs to choose a suitable one. Upon hearing this, Jia Zhangshi realized that it was indeed the case. Women were afraid of marrying the wrong man, and men were afraid of entering the wrong profession. Her eyes turned and she said, "Okay, when Dongxiu enters, you can take him to see what his skills are." She thought that Lu Haizhong, a forger in the backyard, was also skilled, so she talked to him. Before she left, she did not forget to quickly grab half of Yi Zhonghai's white flower mantu. Head of the household, you watch. No matter how good her temper is, Wu Zuelan is a little angry. She used to order white flower mantu, but she didn't even say thank you. As the head of the family, you wouldn't really want to take Jia Dongxiu as an apprentice, would you? Although that Dong Su is not as shameless as his mother, it is a serious thing to take in apprentices these days. The apprentices, like father and son, don't play for fun. Just like Jia Zhang, they are related. I don't know how many things will happen in the future. I don't have that idea at the moment. Yi Zhonghai shook his head, feeling uncomfortable with what Jia Zhang had said. As for retirement, he is not yet 40, and how could he not expect to have his own son? Lao Jia has a good relationship with him. When his wife fell ill and helped take over 2 days of work, but when the Jia family had an accident, he was busy and didn't apologize. As for accepting apprentices, it's better to wait for Jia Dongxiu to enter the factory and see the situation again. After all, this will look like he listens to Jia Zhang's words and is someone who listens to his elders. I don't know what will happen after work. Wu Zuelan listened to what he said and touched her lower abdomen. Master, if there is no news next year, you should consider it. She said what to consider. Naturally it is a choice for elderly care. There will be. How have you been lately? Who wouldn't want their biological child to retire before the last moment? It's much better, but sometimes I feel a little sleepy. The two continued to eat outside. Jia Zhang came out and watched the white flower mantu swallow saliva. It's just so little, and I don't want to do more. I deserve to die. Dongshu, eat while it's hot. Curse a few words and twist your thick waist back. The workers in the courtyard went to the factory shortly after finishing their meals at each house. By the time everyone returned from work in the afternoon, the family in the front yard had already moved. Although there is electricity in the city, the electricity bill is expensive and everyone is reluctant to part ways. After finishing dinner early in the evening, there is nothing else to pass the time except chatting. When new residents arrive, everyone comes to watch the excitement. Silly pillar, how many dishes are you learning today? Let's become a master and try it another day. Su Damao, are you looking for a fight again? The two young boys will come and play around. The older one, aged 15 or 16, looks a bit old but not tall yet. Besides, the older one is believed by some people. This is the eldest son of Taiqing's family in Siheyuan, Yi, who is almost 16 years old this year. He is learning to cook with his father in the factory. However, compared to the name Yi, everyone is accustomed to calling him Silly Zhu. As for why he is called Silly Zhu, this is another story. The smaller one, 12 or 13 years old, with a horse-like face, is very distinctive. Seeing that he is about to be beaten again, a man with the same horse-like face comes over to stop Silly Zhu. It looks like a father and son. This is the father and son of the Su family who live in the backyard. That kid is his son Su Damao, who is 12 years old this year and is like a mortal enemy like Silly Zhu, fighting from childhood to adulthood. Compared to Silly Zhu who didn't study early and followed his father to learn how to cook, Su Damao's father wants him to at least finish middle school well and teach him how to work as a projectionist. This is one of the 8 highly sought-after jobs. In one sentence, the road to wealth. Old Su, what are the boys fighting and blocking? Some bald but wealthy men walked over from the courtyard. This was Silly Zhu's father, Yi Taiqing, holding a 17-year-old girl and Silly Zhu's sister, Yi Rainwater. The two mothers passed away early, and Yi Taiqing was a man with his children. Fortunately, he was a cook. In any era, there would be no shortage of food without a cook to eat. This little rain also kept him clean. Su Damao's father, Su Fugue, gave a white glance. He didn't know the severity of that foolish pillar's actions. Just this stinky kid, if you don't listen, why keep provoking this silly pillar? Oh, everyone ate quite early. We have new members in this courtyard, and the most experienced ones should be welcomed. Watching the burly man with big arms and thick waist also cross the hallway to the front yard, the two boys behind him quickly dodged. The Lu family, who live in the backyard together, is a skilled blacksmith in the steel rolling mill. Behind him is his wife and youngest son Lu Guangfu, holding a 3 or 4-year-old boy. The two who just ran over are his eldest son Lu Guangqi and his second son Lu Guangtian. Silly Zhu, Lu Guangqi is about the same age as Silly Zhu. He probably won't be able to get into high school in this year's middle school entrance exam, so he also needs to consider his future work. Everyone is familiar with the same courtyard, and we will talk about it together. When Yi Zhonghai and his wife followed the elderly lady in her 60s from the backyard, dozens of people from over 10 households of all sizes in the courtyard crowded into the front yard, and everyone also got to the main topic. The newly moved Yan family, which is being watched by so many people, feels a bit under pressure. However, Yan Bugue has been a teacher for many years and has a bit of momentum. He took a step forward and took the initiative to say, "Hello neighbors, our family has just moved in. I am Yan Bugue, 35 years old, teaching at the children's primary school. If you have children, I can also take care of them. This is my mother.in.law, boss." Yan Bugue is small in stature, and seeing his cultural weakness is different from these workers. However, in this era, he still respects cultural people very much, especially when it comes to hearing that he is a teacher, which makes everyone look up to him. His daughter-in-law is pregnant with one, and there are 3 boys standing behind her. The oldest one is 12 or 13 years old, and the youngest one is only 2 or 3 years old. As for simple and even patchy clothing, this is a characteristic of this era that no one cares about. Yen brothers, welcome to our courtyard house. Our courtyard house has always been loved by our neighbors. Don't worry, I am Yi Zhonghai from the main courtyard, working at the steel rolling mill. This is the old lady from the backyard. The old residents, led by Yi Zhonghai, also began to introduce themselves. The old men talked about work, the old women played around the house, and the children played together. The Yen family officially integrated into this courtyard. Chapter 3. Jia Zhang's doorstep coercion to recruit disciples. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the blink of an eye, it was a few more days when the wives of various families in the courtyard gathered together, chatting with a cheerful tone. It turns out that this day is when the steel rolling mill pays wages. In addition to the wages, the factory usually finds grain as a benefit, and even lucky enough to have the opportunity to meet someone who sells pork. For everyone in the courtyard, the family basically relies on the salary of that worker to make the next month's rations. The Jia Zhang family in the main courtyard did not get involved, or rather, since Lao Jia left, Jia Zhang's temperament has become increasingly aggressive and shameless, and everyone does not want to get too close to her. The Zhao family's daughter-in-law who was by the hallway before only passed by her house and went to the main courtyard to fetch water. She was told that she had taken her insole and cheated 1,000 yuan. Chuantang refers to the road from the front courtyard to the main courtyard, which is a bit like passing through a hall house. This is the road that is empty in the middle of 2 houses, and the road is built by connecting the above. Jia Zhangshi has a good skill in taking shoes. She would sit at the entrance and take shoes, looking at the front yard with sharp eyes that could scare and cry children. She cursed softly and pounded her all fiercely. She naturally knows that the steel rolling mill pays wages. The key is that Jia Dongshu has only been in the factory for a few days. How much is his salary? I'm not a formal worker yet. I only have around 180,000 apprentices a month, and I don't know how many there will be in the next few days. The first set of RMB has a large denomination, with a ratio of approximately 10,000.1 compared to the later ones. She cursed Yi Zhonghai for having a good relationship with Lao Jia, and didn't know if he would bring Dong Su into the factory sooner so that he could receive a month's salary. There is also a son who inherits his father's business. Dongshu's father is doing a good job in the fitter, so this time Jia Dongshu will go to the fitter. When he comes back these days, his son says he is tired, and Jia Zhang scolds Yi Zhonghai, but he doesn't know how to make it easy for his son. When everyone in the courtyard returned in the evening, with wages in their pockets and benefits from the factory in their hands, they all had smiles on their faces. Yi Zhonghai followed Jia Dongshu into the main courtyard, and Jia Zhang looked at the grain bag in Jia Dongshu's hand with joy. Oh my good son, he just made money and went home. My son is really good. Jia Dongshu was originally interrupted while talking to Yi Zhonghai, so he had to deal with his mother and bid farewell to Yi Zhonghai. Uncle Yi, I'll go back to the house first, he said. Go ahead, Yi Zhonghai nodded. Jia Zhang ignored Yi Zhonghai's grain bag, which was similar to her own son's, and now she just wants to go back and ask her son how much he has been paid this time. Yi Zhonghai family Wu Zuelan didn't talk to her daughter-in-law and aunt in the courtyard either. One reason was that she had been feeling heavy and uncomfortable lately. In addition, since the teacher from the Yen family moved in, it seems that there have been more children in the courtyard. Everyone likes to talk about children together. She hasn't given birth to a son and a half for Lao Yi in so many years, so she always feels unable to lift her head and doesn't want to go. She sat inside the door, opened the door and closed the curtain, borrowing the cardboard box from outside. I am also happy to see my own man back. Boss, what's going on in the factory this month? 1 kilogram of white noodles, 2 cabbage, and 1 or 2 white sugar. Yi Zhonghai said and handed over the grain bag, then took out the oil paper bag from his pocket. Ordinary workers are given 1 pound of stick noodles and 2 pieces of cabbage. This white noodles are much more expensive than stick noodles. White noodles are finely ground by a wheat nucleating machine, which is delicate and delicious. Stick noodles are made by drying and grinding corn in the sun. This kind of stick noodles is made by grinding corn cobs into them, which makes them rough and unpleasant to eat. 1 pound of white noodles is almost equivalent to 2 pounds of stick noodles, while 1 pound of white noodles or stick noodles can be eaten finely enough for one person for 4 to 5 days, and it is almost enough to fill the stomach. Only those with better conditions will eat white noodles. Yi Zhonghai is also skilled, and the fitters in the factory are now 1 or 2, so what he gets is white flour and some sugar. This time there is more sugar. Try braised pork belly as the leader next time. Wu Zuelan happily put away the sugar and placed the cabbage in the room. She doesn't want to lock the door and values a civilized and harmonious family, but she will also keep good food and other good things hidden in the room. Wu Zuelan remembered just now that Jia Dongxiu was following Yi Zhonghai and asked, "Boss, what did I say to you when Dong Su's child came back? It's not about wanting to apprentice yet. I used to tell Jia Zhang what to learn based on talent, but there is no such thing as ease. In these days, worker positions are so rare, and it's up to you to pick and choose. Basically, what kind of job you start with, and what kind of job you end up with, because it's just like how old Jia's factory has not yet fully staffed. Since Jia Dongxiu entered the factory as an apprentice, he has been working as an apprentice, consisting of more than a dozen apprentices and an old master. This master has a different relationship from the master and apprentice who received the apprentices, but it is a designated teaching task in the factory. Each person leads more than a dozen, and I will explain it to you once or twice. If you can understand it, practice it. If you don't hear it, it's just like that. Don't expect others to put in too much effort. After all, there are no rewards for this apprentice factory, but if the apprentice performs well, there may be some grain commission. However, no matter how good the apprentice's performance is, it is better to work more during the delayed time and earn more. Jia Dongxiu and Yi Zhonghai are not in the same workshop, but he has also seen that Jia Dongxiu does not have much talent in the field of fitters, and is not as talented as his father when he worked as a fitter. Even if he managed to earn a salary of around 400,000 yuan, it would be difficult for him to just enter the factory. Thinking of his seniority as a fitter, he wanted to apprentice. Yi Zhonghai talked to his mother-in-law about Jia Dongxiu's falling behind in his studies among the newly hired apprentices in the factory. Jia Zhang is expected to come to you again later. Wu Zuelan's words fell, and when she said Chow Chow, Chow Chow would arrive. Pop 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 pop, there was a heavy knocking on the door again, and it was unclear whether it was the last time she was mentioned or whether Jia Dongxiu was by his side. This time, Jia Zhang did not break in directly. Yi Zhonghai, open the door. I have something to do with you. Wu Zuelan rolled her eyes. It was really impolite to ask for help. She was as aggressive as the Yi family owed her. Sister Jia, what's up? Yi Zhonghai opened the door and Jia Zhangshi rushed in with Jia Dongxiu, feeling a bit disappointed to see that there was not much food on the noodles. Yi Zhonghai, I was wondering when you mentioned before about taking my family's Dongxiu as an apprentice. You don't know how despicable Dongxiu's master was in the factory, and he made it difficult for Dongxiu to teach him well. He was jealous of Dongxiu's talent and afraid that he would surpass him. If I had to see if it was your skill that could teach my family's Dongxiu. Jia Zhang, when did my old Yi agree to accept my apprenticeship? Wu Zuelan was displeased with what Jia Zhang had said. Only the leader's skills can be taught, just like what a big shot Jia Dongxiu is, ordinary people are not qualified to teach. Yi Zhonghai stopped his mother-in-law from continuing, but he looked at Jia Dongxiu and said. Sister Jia, Dongxiu has just entered the factory. Master Li's technical teaching apprenticeship is sufficient. The factory has designated several apprentices under my command, all of whom teach the same way. However, Master Li leads the way in and cultivates on a personal level. Dongshu, do you think so? Upon hearing his words, Jia Dongshu's gaze dodged, and Yi Zhonghai knew that Jia Dongshu had not told Jia Zhang about his true situation in the factory. However, even if she said it, it is estimated that Jia Zhang will still think that her eldest child is a genius. If she cannot learn well, it is because others envy her talent and do not teach her well. After all, her family is Dongshu, and she has been smart since childhood. How could it be the same? What's his salary? How much is your salary? Yi Zhonghai, you promised me, don't you want to pay? Oh Lao Jia, why am I so unfortunate? This orphan and widowed mother, your son is being bullied now, and your ungrateful brothers don't even help. Lao Jia, no need for Jia Dongshu to say anything. Realizing that Yi Zhonghai didn't want to take in his apprenticeship, Jia Zhang's eyes rolled around and she slapped her thighs, pretending to cry while summoning Lao Jia. She was ungrateful and had a white-eyed wolf in her mouth. Chapter 4. Fainting and Pregnancy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jia Zhang has a loud voice, and everyone in the courtyard will be present at night. When they hear the sound, they hold bowls and watch the excitement. Yi Zhonghai looked at the people gathered outside with a cold gaze. Anyone who was being ungrateful and white-eyed would feel uncomfortable. His family owes the Jia family something. However, in this era, reputation is highly valued. What would people think of their orphaned and widowed mother crying in his house? Although everyone knows a lot about Jia and Zhang's character in the past 2 years, it cannot withstand the fear of human words. So he looked at Jia Dongshu and said, Dongshu, why don't you take your mother home for dinner tonight? Jia Dongshu pretended to persuade his mother in a low voice, but unfortunately, with a big wave of her hand, Jia Zhang's crying became even louder. Lao Jia, some people don't keep their words, ungrateful white-eyed wolves, Uncle Yi. Jia Dongshu looked at him seeking help, then suddenly knelt down and said, Uncle Yi, take me as your disciple. I will take good care of you and provide you with retirement in the future. Lao Yi, what's going on here? Oh, accept the disciple, accept it. Anyway, you don't have a son either. It's not bad to have an apprentice for retirement. I think Dongshu is a good child. He has been filial since childhood. Having eaten and drunk enough in the bangs, licking his stomach and still carrying the smell of alcohol, he smiled and said with a friendly expression after knowing the cause and effect. As for the shameless and shameless Jia and Zhang families, if they were to expose the Yi family, there would be a good show to watch. Lu Haizhong thought about what Su Fugue had told him and increasingly felt that it was a good idea for Yi Zhonghai to take Jia Dongshu as his disciple. The other people in the courtyard whispered as they learned about the situation. Jia Zhang secretly opened one eye and looked at Yi Zhonghai. She also cried, and Dong Su knelt down. Only by taking the next step would she definitely accept Dong Su as her disciple, as the old lady had said. If she had half an apprentice, then Wu Zuelan would be a hen who doesn't lay eggs. In the future, this Yi family will not be as big as her. Jia Zhang took a deep breath and was about to move on to the next step, but the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. Wu Zuelan's heart was filled with anxiety as she listened to some ungrateful white-eyed wolf, and her anger surged in her bangs when she said something without a son. She had already been feeling unwell these days, and her eyes rolled over and she fainted. Zuelan. Yi Zhonghai had a sharp eye and quickly held on to his wife, causing him to lose his popularity. Whether it was a farce or a show, this scene could not continue. Jia Zhang, our Yi family doesn't owe you anything. When Lao Jia left, it was also me who was busy with everything. I never promised to accept an apprentice. Zuelan's health is not good, so don't blame me for being impolite next time. He spoke of indifference, and suddenly, people who had always been friendly were like this. Not to mention Jia and Zhang, even Lu Haizhong was frightened by his cold eyes. His wife fainted, and Yi Zhonghai had no intention of arguing with them. He asked the neighboring Li family to help take care of the house. In a hurry, he carried his wife on his back to see a doctor. The couple has been together for almost 20 years, but due to health reasons, the daughter-in-law did not have any children, but their relationship is still very good. As they watched the ending, everyone whispered a few words and went back to their respective homes, looking for their mothers. However, today the scoundrels of the Jia and Zhang families gave them a better understanding. Everyone in the courtyard knew that the Yi family and his wife were kind, and it was rare for them to help the Jia family in a normal way. So they were taken to the hospital by the Jia family. "Sai, why do you join in the fun?" Lu Haizhong's daughter-in-law came to call his youngest son home. Yi Zhonghai is 1 year older than Lu Haizhong, and having no children has always been a pain in one's feet. Lu Haizhong still talks about it, which is not clear if it is causing resentment. "What do you girls know?" Lu Haizhong frowned and saw his second son Lu Guangtian running back to scold him a few times before returning home. He is a skilled fitter in Zhonghai and even intervenes in his forging work. Lu Hai didn't deal with him because he felt that both of them had similar skills, so why is Yi Zhonghai's salary tens of thousands higher than him? However, he has 3 sons, which makes him proud compared to Yi Zhonghai. The crowd dispersed, and the Jia family also returned home in disappointment. At the side door from the main courtyard to the backyard, the little-footed old lady glanced at her and slowly returned to the backyard with a cane. There is a health center in the steel rolling mill, but since the doctors have finished work so late, Yi Zhonghai anxiously picked up the 49 cities hospital. This will involve the establishment of a country and the introduction of Western medicine. However, Yi Zhonghai still feels that traditional Chinese medicine doctors are reliable. When he finds an experienced Chinese medicine practitioner for consultation, Zhonghai quickly asks people to take a look. "Doctor, my mother-in-law has been knocked out by the popularity. Please hurry up and see what's going on." The doctor is an elderly traditional Chinese medicine practitioner with gray hair, but he still has agile movements and a strong body. Seeing someone faint, they quickly asked Yi Zhonghai to put him on the hospital bed. He checked his pulse and looked up at Yi Zhonghai with drooping eyelids. "Your daughter-in-law is not a big problem, but she is pregnant. As a man, you should pay attention. Pregnant women are not prone to excessive emotions, and she is also considered an elderly woman." The doctor explained, but Yi Zhonghai's pupils narrowed and he only heard one sentence. "Doctor, you said my daughter-in-law is pregnant. I'm going to be a father. I have a queen in Yi Zhonghai." Yi Zhonghai reacted and exclaimed 3 times in surprise, which was enough to see his excitement. The old Chinese medicine practitioner thought to himself, no wonder he didn't get excited when he saw his first child in his 40s. "Yes, your wife is almost 2 months pregnant and she is not in good health. She is also an elderly mother, so you still need to pay attention." Wu Zuelan woke up leisurely, and upon hearing this, she was instantly startled to say, "Doctor, you said I'm pregnant and I have a child." "Zuelan, you're awake. You're going to be a mother, I'm going to be a father." Yi Zhonghai helped her sit up with concern, and the two of them were as excited as a young man of 20, but it was not incomprehensible. Having been married for so many years, the child never came. Yi Zhonghai was forced to start considering retirement issues today, but he didn't expect such a surprise from fate. With his own biological child, who would consider others? As for whether this child is a man or a woman, Yi Zhonghai doesn't think much. Having his own child has been a long-standing expectation. If it's a son, he will teach him to be a man. If he can read, he will study hard, take the college entrance exam, and honor his ancestors. If he can't read, he will teach him his own skills. It's really not enough. He can save more property for his son, and if it's a daughter, it's okay. Finding a son-in-law who can cut corners is not a problem, considering the conditions of his Yi family. Thinking too far away, after calming down and enjoying themselves, the two of them earnestly asked the doctor about the method of getting an abortion and jotted it down. It's a bit late, and Yi Zhonghai is also returning now. He doesn't mind the tens of thousands of hospital expenses, so he decided to stay in the hospital for one night. The head of the family, this is too expensive. Let's go home instead. Wu Zuelan was a bit reluctant, thinking that with these tens of thousands of yuan, she could buy several chickens to raise babies for her child to supplement. It's okay, we've been frugal for so many years, it's not just for the children. It will be autumn now, and the wind outside is strong at night. Wu Zuelan was already in poor health, but she fainted again today. No matter how careful she is for her child, she cannot be too careful. Chapter 5. Old Mother Chicken Soup. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yi Zhonghai and his wife did not come back tonight, and only the Yan family, who had taken care of the gatekeeper's work in the front yard, and several families living in the main courtyard noticed. There won't really be an accident, will there? Several families speculated that silly Zhu was a bit worried. Usually, Uncle Yi and Aunt Yi treated him well, especially since he had lost his mother long ago. Wu Zuelan took good care of all the children in the courtyard because she had no children, and the He family had the most siblings in the main courtyard, so their relationship was naturally good. However, his father He Taiqing is not at home either. He hasn't been at home at night these days, and there are no adults in his family, so it's not easy to inquire. The next morning, as it was a day off and everyone was at home, the wives of each family were collecting water from the main courtyard pool to wash up before realizing that Yi Zhonghai and his wife had not returned all night. Yi's daughter-in-law won't really make Jia Zhang angry at all, will she? I don't know which aunt said a word, and everyone started chatting and discussing. Mom, there won't really be any trouble. Will Yi Zhonghai still take me as his disciple? The Jia family in the main courtyard closed the door, but the sound outside was also clear. Jia Dongshu is a bit worried. Dongshu, don't worry, my dear. Wu Zuelan's poor health and dizziness have nothing to do with us. It's really not possible. We'll call the old lady to come forward later. She's an elder, and she also supports us. The little-footed old lady in the backyard lived in the courtyard at the earliest. In her early years, Jia Zhang had just married into the Jia family, but she knew that the old lady had a high reputation. Yi Zhonghai will definitely listen to the old lady. Not long after, Yi Zhonghai returned from outside alone, carrying 2 chickens through the front yard, which was very conspicuous. Lao Yi, is your wife okay? The speaker was Yan Bugue from the front yard. He looked at the old hen and swallowed, but as a teacher, he should pay attention to his appearance and withdraw his gaze to show his concern. He has just entered the courtyard, and Yi Zhonghai has good technical skills and a good voice in the courtyard. He also intends to make friends. Oh, Teacher Yan, it's okay. You're going fishing. Yi Zhonghai had a smile on his face, and anyone with a discerning eye knew that his wife had fainted from anger and had not returned from the hospital all night. Why did she still smile? I won't let Yi's daughter-in-law hiccup. Yi Zhonghai is happy to marry a new one and have a child for him. Yan Bugue boldly guessed in his heart, but still asked curiously on the surface, Lao Yi, what kind of happy event are you having? It's a happy occasion. My mother-in-law is pregnant, and I want to be a father now. Yi Zhonghai laughed and waited for him to ask. He spoke loudly, wishing everyone in the courtyard could hear him. The fact was indeed as he had hoped, and the news spread immediately after a few people in the front yard learned about it. Yi's daughter-in-law is pregnant. Everyone was surprised to hear this news, but when they met Yi Zhonghai on the way, everyone said congratulations. Brother Yi, this hen is bought for his sister-in-law to eat, isn't it? My sister-in-law is blessed. This is a daughter-in-law from a certain family in the courtyard. In this era, we don't see meat many times a year. That daughter-in-law is pregnant and it's good to have an egg to supplement her. I can't envy seeing Yi's sister.in.law eat chicken. Congratulations, Uncle Yi. If you give birth to a chubby boy, you'll need to give him some candy. This is a young person in the courtyard, taking this opportunity to beg for some candy. My mother.in.law's physical condition is pregnant, so I need to make up for it. It's all so hard for her. Okay, I'll borrow your auspicious words. When the child is born, candy is indispensable. Yi Zhonghai responded one by one with a smile throughout the entire process, but before he could come to his own house and put away the chickens, the disappointed person came again. Yi Zhonghai, your daughter.in.law is pregnant. Hee, that's not my fault, otherwise you wouldn't have noticed that your daughter.in.law is pregnant. I'm getting older and didn't notice that accidentally bumping is not good. I think you should give me one chicken as a thank you. Jia Zhang's chubby figure didn't know how to be so agile. As Yi Zhonghai stepped into the main courtyard, he rushed out of the Jia family in just a few steps and stopped him in front of Yi Zhonghai. She looked at the two chickens with bright eyes, and as she spoke, she reached out to grab them. Yi Zhonghai frowned, and the cursed words made his eyes cold. Now, when he saw the child in his wife's belly, which was heavier than anything else, Yi Zhonghai ignored Jia Zhang. The strength of the fitter is unmatched by her as a woman. She raised her hand to block it, and Yi Zhonghai put the chicken into the chicken cage in the hall. Outside the house, Jia Zhang was cursing profusely. When Yi Zhonghai came out again, her eyes lit up and she looked inside. Yi Zhonghai's cold eyes swept away and suppressed Jia Zhang. Considering that Jia Zhang's hands and feet were not clean, he called out to Jia Dongshu, asking him to keep an eye on his mother, and then went knocking on the door of Taiqing's house. Pillar, is your father at home? The person who opened the door was Silly Zhu. He had just woken up and didn't know the news outside. And he didn't come back yesterday, so he was still very worried. No, he didn't know where he went last night. Are you asking my dad for help? Where's Aunt Yi? Is she okay? It's okay, Aunt Yi is pregnant and I'm going to be a dad now. Good thing, no wonder Uncle Yi looks in a good mood. The chubby kid who needs to be born will be taken by my brother to fight Invincible in Nanluoga Lane. Huh, okay, I'll borrow your auspicious words. Yi Zhonghai patted He Yuzhu on the shoulder. He knew that this child had one track, but he was still quite kind-hearted. He was also a bastard like He Taiqing, who gave him the nickname, Silly Pillar. Isn't this not misleading? Your Aunt Yi is pregnant, and I bought an old hen. I don't want your father to be good at cooking, but I want him to help me stew soup. Since your father is not here, let's forget it. Uncle Yi, you are this, Silly Zhu gave a thumbs up. These days, I can't even eat enough. It's really good for Yi Zhonghai to buy chicken to help his wife with her health. He thought of something and asked, Uncle Yi, I've been learning to cook for so many years, why don't you let me give it a try? A clever woman cannot cook without rice, and even when she learns to cook, she finds it difficult to come across good ingredients. Most dishes are prepared by listening and memorizing the recipe. To truly practice, one still needs to find opportunities, and this opportunity will come. Yi Zhonghai did not refuse. Although he can cook himself, what he can eat these days is good. As for the taste, it's really not much. He has never made chicken soup once, and I feel that he is not as good as He Yuzhu, who has studied cooking. His wife is currently pregnant with the treasure of the old Yi family, and Yi Zhonghai naturally hopes for a better taste. 2 old hens, leaving one to lay eggs and the other Silly Pillar to divide into 2 and 3. They cut their throats, let out blood, and plucked their feathers in hot water. The first time they made chicken soup, they were already very skilled in killing chickens. As noon approached, the strong aroma of chicken soup spread leisurely from the Yi family in the main courtyard. Everyone in the courtyard swallowed the smell and had to say that Silly Zhu was indeed very talented in cooking. Yi Zhonghai returned with Wu Zuelan, it smells so good. He Taiqing's craftsmanship is excellent. Wu Zuelan took a sniff and knew that the head of the household was also looking happy when preparing old mother's chicken soup for her. It's not Lao He who did it. That old kid didn't know where to run and hang out. Guess who it was? Yi Zhonghai spoke with great caution while protecting his wife, occasionally noticing that Wu Zuelan's lower abdomen also had a gentle expression. Isn't it He Taiqing? It's a pillar. Alright, this craftsmanship is blessed today. The two of them returned home, while the kitchen pillar was still watching the fire. When they saw Yi Zhonghai and his wife return, they lifted the door curtain and came out. Congratulations, Aunt Yi. Uncle Yi is really kind to you. Uncle Yi has almost finished his chicken soup, so you can handle it yourself. I'll go back first and wait for the rain and water to make you hungry. Bring the rain to the pillar and eat it together. Yi Zhonghai opened the invitation, and he thought of Silly Zhu's personality. He had a good relationship with him and was indeed a protector of his weaknesses. Moreover, he was powerful among the younger generation, so it would be better for him to have someone to protect his children in the future. In addition, the He family has good cooking skills. Learn more in the future, and the baby will also enjoy delicious food. Damn it, I'll go bring the rainwater. Silly Zhu was not polite either. The chef made it a tradition to eat and take, but Yi Zhonghai invited him to come with rainwater, and Silly Zhu was also happy. The host's invitation is always different. Chapter 6. The old lady visits the door. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A pot of chicken soup stewed produces a rich milky white color. In this era, the seasoning is not rich, and Silly Columns added a few dried red dates, which also brought a fragrant aroma to the face. 8-year-old He Rainwater looked at the chicken soup on the table, his stomach growling greedily. Little Rain is hungry, let's start moving. Wu Zuelan enjoys seeing agile children since she is pregnant. Seeing the appearance of Xiao Yushui, he reached out and gave her a small bowl. At this time, Shazhu came to the table with mantu just out of the pot. 7 or 8 big mantu were not white mantu, but they were also made of good dul noodles. Yi Zhonghai filled a big bowl for Wu Zuelan, and his appetite was full, but there were always people disturbing her while eating. Pop 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 pop, there was another knock on the door, but it was not the rough knocking of Jia Zhang. The crisp sound was like the sound of wood knocking on the door. Wu Zuelan breathed a sigh of relief. If it weren't Jia Zhang, it would be better. This would make her pregnant, but she didn't want to meet that shameless person. Here we go. Yi Zhonghai opened the door and saw an old lady with small feet in the backyard, so he quickly helped someone in. Old lady, why did you come? Hey, Yi family kid, I heard your daughter-in-law is pregnant. This is a good thing. Let me take a look. The old lady walked in with a cane, and she had a smile on her face, looking like a kind little old lady. Harmful, then you can come by yourself. I happen to buy a chicken, made of pillars, to make up for Zuelan. You can also sit there, old lady, and try the craftsmanship of pillars. Okay, I'll try my good grandson's craft. When Silly Zhu saw the old lady, he quickly got up. The old lady in the backyard always called him obediently and treated him well. Silly Zhu really had some feelings for his grandmother towards her. He pointed to the empty seat next to him and wanted to help the old lady over. Hey, old lady, you're here too. Sit here. No, I'm sitting with my daughter today, feeling happy. The old lady waved her hand and refused, while Wu Zuelan smiled and sat with the old lady. Come, old lady, have chicken soup. Speaking of which, Wu Zuelan fled from famine to 49 cities in the past. If it weren't for the introduction of Yi Zhonghai by the old lady, there wouldn't be such a good day now. Therefore, Wu Zuelan is very grateful to the old lady. Okay, it's still my daughter's filial piety. The old lady squinted her eyes and affectionately took Wu Zuelan's hand, touching her still flat belly. This baby must be a male doll. Give Yi a good time and have fun. The old lady is transparent, but whether it's a child or a woman, having a child is enough. Wu Zuelan gently touched her stomach, not sure if she had the illusion of smelling the faint fragrance on the old lady's body, like the scent of rouge. The old lady heard from the head of the household that she had been in the courtyard for a long time. It seems that she used to be a lady and had rouge, which is not surprising. However, as the old lady is getting older, how could it be possible? Wu Zuelan smelled it again, but it still had a strong taste of chicken soup. She thought she had smelled it wrong and stroked her stomach, chatting and drinking chicken soup together. The faint unease in my heart was suppressed. At night, a figure sneaked into the main courtyard from the backyard and rushed into the Jia family. "Mom, how are you? Is the old lady willing to help?" Jia Dongshu lit a candle and groped out. "No, damn old lady. She promised us well, but even made us wait. By then, my son will be 18. If I had become a formal worker as a master under Yi Zhonghai, I would definitely have found a top-notch wife to come back." Jia Zhang cursed softly, but he didn't dare to act recklessly in front of the old lady. She married into the Jia family back then and was in the courtyard. At that time, the old lady was still young and had an extraordinary demeanor, just like a lady from a wealthy family. Moreover, Lao Jia also instructed her to be an ancestor to the old lady, otherwise she would be kicked out of the courtyard. Jia Zhang used to come from a rural area with little knowledge and culture, but small animals have a strong sense of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. She knows that the old lady may not look like a kind little old lady, but she only dares not throw tantrums in front of the old lady in the courtyard. Taiqing, who returned in the middle of the night, glanced at the Jia family with hazy lights and did not take it seriously. However, just now I learned from Yan Bugui that Yi Zhonghai's wife is pregnant, which surprised Taiqing very much. However, the family was in charge of their own affairs, hoping that the child would be born smoothly. When Taiqing returned to his room, he didn't light up the lights and rustled for a while before leaving overnight. Chapter 7. Accidents. Be alert. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After autumn, the weather turns cooler. It was originally a happy event for Yi Zhonghai's daughter-in-law to become pregnant, but the couple feels uneasy every day. I didn't know if it was because Wu Zuelan was getting older and her previous health was not good. This pregnancy was very difficult to conceive. After being diagnosed with pregnancy that day, the reaction to vomiting was too intense. However, this child was the hope of the couple. Yi Zhonghai quickly ran back after work every day, and over the course of a month, she also became much more haggard. Another noon, Yi Zhonghai picked up the boxed lunch that Taiqing had prepared in advance and hurried back after work. "Master Yi is not easy either. Let's go back and take care of my sister-in-law today." "Harmful, who says it's not? I heard this pregnancy reaction is too severe, and I don't know if it can be saved." "Pooh, don't make this statement in front of Master Yi." "Yes, if you don't think about Master Yi's age, I guess this baby is the only one. If you say that, be careful of him and you fighting hard." After Yi Zhonghai left, workers familiar with the situation in the same workshop chatted. At a table in the distance, there is a big mouthful of dried rice in the bangs. Today's pig oil residue and cabbage are fragrant. As for taking my wife and children back to eat, he doesn't have that idea. He's the backbone of the family, and he can't hold on to the delicious food. But that guy Yi Zhonghai deserves his life as an orphan, unlike him, who has 3 sons and worries about no one to retire in the future. "Brother Yi, I'm back. My sister-in-law is vomiting heavily during pregnancy. The old lady is currently visiting." Yi Zhonghai passed by Yan Bugui's house in the front yard and said to him. Yan Bugui's wife, this 4th child, has been pregnant for 6 months without any feeling of work, which is much easier than Wu Zuelan. Yi Zhonghai is very busy with work, and his wife is pregnant, which is a situation. He gave 2 eggs to Yan's wife to take a look at and transfer some experience. Upon hearing her say this, I nodded and thanked her, then rushed to the main courtyard in a hurry. Jia Zhang muttered in a low voice, pointing out that her pregnancy could not be saved, and Yi Zhonghai had to consider being an elderly person. Yi Zhonghai didn't pay attention to her. When he returned home, the old lady happened to come out from inside. Old lady, you have a big family background. Siheyuan, where do you need to take care of her? The old lady sitting here cannot take care of anyone, and on the contrary, she is old and easily distracts her daughter. Law. Yi Zhonghai does not agree. My daughter, I can't take a look. Go and see your wife quickly. The old lady smiled, tapped her cane on the ground, and then murmured a small step towards the backyard. Look at this. Yi Zhonghai shook his head, but it was also kind of her to come and visit. He didn't say much. Siheyuan, I feel good today. Cough. The slight fragrance brought by lifting the door curtain made Yi Zhonghai cough a few times. How could there be a fragrance? Yi Zhonghai frowned and slapped his palm. In the room, Siheyuan was drinking water at the table. Her face was a bit pale, although she had eaten very well this month. From time to time, Yi Zhonghai would buy an old hen to stew soup for her body, but she also suffered a lot from her pregnancy reaction. But every time I touch my stomach and feel the child, no matter how much I blame her, she is willing to do it. Head of the household, you're back, you're okay today, and you haven't vomited yet. Siheyuan put down her bowl and opened her mouth with a smile. Suddenly, there was a slight pain in her stomach and a faint sense of falling in her lower body. Siheyuan's eyes widened in surprise. The head of the family, it's not good. Take me to the hospital quickly. Siheyuan's frightened voice was sharp, and Yi Zhonghai's pupils shrank. What's wrong, Siheyuan? Yi Zhonghai quickly stepped forward, while Siheyuan sat down carefully, forcibly calming down and saying her feelings, go to the hospital quickly. My stomach is stinging, and I think it's going to turn red. My child. There shouldn't be any accidents. Okay, nothing's wrong. Upon hearing that the child had an accident, Yi Zhonghai dared not delay and ran out in a panic. Zhang's family, could you lend me your scooter so that I can take my wife to the hospital? Siheyuan's sister has an accident. Zhang's daughter. Law dared not delay, so Yi Zhonghai borrowed a cart to pull a quilt and took her to the hospital. Several Law in the hospital also kindly helped. I rushed to the hospital in a panic, but fortunately the child was saved in the end. In the ward, Siheyuan went through a dangerous situation and found out that her child had gone to bed without any worries. Several Law's courtyards also had elderly and children to take care of, so she went back first. Yi Zhonghai asked them to help ask the man from that family to take a leave. Who is a pregnant husband? At this moment, a little nurse came over with a medical record. I am Yi Zhonghai, followed the little nurse out. Pregnant women and children are fine, but as a husband, what's going on? I don't know if pregnant women are elderly mothers, and it's not easy to conceive. How can you come into contact with cosmetics during pregnancy? At this time, the cosmetics production process was rudimentary, and some of the commonly used ingredients were not friendly to pregnant women, such as the common musk, which was a common dirty thing in the backyard of wealthy households in the past. The little nurse's accusation was blunt, but Yi Zhonghai did not refute it. The more he listened, the more his eyebrows furrowed. The little nurse said that the doctor diagnosed that the daughter-in-law had come into contact with cosmetics in this incident. Yi Zhonghai has some knowledge and knows that cosmetics are similar to the rouge and toner used by women in the past, but he knows for sure that his family doesn't have them at all. Suddenly thinking of the fragrance that entered the door at noon today, Zhonghai clenched his fists fiercely. Next time, don't come into contact with these anymore. You know, I don't want my wife and children anymore, do I? The little nurse said for so long, but when she saw the man keep bowing his head and listening quietly, she let him go. Yi Zhonghai asked for some precautions again and then returned to the ward. Chapter 8. The Face of the Old Lady. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yi's daughter.in.law almost miscarried and went to the hospital. The people in the courtyard were very surprised to hear this news, but what surprised them even more was that his wife had not returned after staying in the hospital for half a month. Yi Zhonghai explained that his wife is an elderly parturient, and the pregnancy is not easy, so she needs to be hospitalized to raise the baby. Everyone thinks that Yi Zhonghai has put in a lot of money for this child. After all, no one knows that hospital expenses are expensive, hospitalization medication costs are expensive, and it will take several months to stay until the child is born. It is unclear how much money Yi Zhonghai will spend, and even his monthly salary of 700,000 to 800,000 yuan is not prohibited from being artificial. Wu Zuelan also had this idea. She had been staying in the hospital for about a month now, and her symptoms of pregnancy were indeed quite good. Because she was only hospitalized without medication, and meals were also delivered by Yi Zhonghai, the hospital expenses were not as scary as the hospital people thought. However, there was also a daily hospitalization fee of 10,000 yuan, which was 300,000 yuan per month. When she gave birth, it would not exceed 1 million yuan. Wu Zuelan felt heartbroken. As the head of the family, don't we really go home to have a baby? The cost is also too high. Wu Zuelan looked at the millet porridge in chicken soup that was sent today, and suggested deliberately. She's almost raised now and hasn't heard of that daughter.in.law being pregnant and staying in the hospital for a few months. It's okay, I see you're doing well in the hospital. You don't have to worry about the money. Yi Zhonghai looked at his wife's belly, which had been showing signs of pregnancy for over 4 months, and worked tirelessly to serve her. They didn't have any children before, so considering frugality in the future, his salary gradually increased, and he did save a lot of money. Hey, don't I just want to spend less and have children spend more in the future? Wu Zuelan smiled, feeling a bit sweet as a young couple because of their child's arrival. She took a few mouthfuls of millet porridge in chicken soup and ate it with a mantu, leaving the rest to Yi Zhonghai. Although this month's hospitalization costs money, it is indeed convenient. The hospital environment is good, with bathrooms and other amenities. Living in the hospital is more comfortable than in the main courtyard. In addition, the food is good. Although Yi Zhonghai still runs on 2 ends every day and has some meat. Seeing his wife wanting to go back, Yi Zhonghai thought for a moment and decided to explain some things to her. Zuelan, there's something I can tell you, but please control your emotions and be careful of your child. The head of the family, what's wrong? Wu Zuelan couldn't help but become serious when she saw his serious face. She knew that every time this happened, something important would happen. And vaguely, she felt that it was related to herself or her child. I won't let you go back because I'm afraid I won't be able to give birth to the child in the hospital. When Yi Zhonghai spoke, a thunderbolt shook Wu Zuelan's heart and mind. What are you saying? How could that be? Most people are simple in this way, and even if the courtyard is noisy, there will only be some trivial matters. How could a child be born if they are good? Someone is trying to harm her child. Wu Zuelan felt a shiver as she realized this. Don't worry, it should be targeted at me. You will be fine in the hospital, and I will solve it later. Yi Zhonghai is soothing. Who is in charge? Is it the Jia Zhang family? Thinking of someone harming her, Wu Zuelan was the first to think of Jia Zhang. There was no worse person in the entire courtyard than this shameless one. Sometimes, when you look at people, you can't just look at the surface. Jia Zhang is a ruthless scoundrel, but now she doesn't have the courage to cause harm or death. It's an old lady. Yi Zhonghai shook his head and gritted his teeth as he saw someone Wu Zuelan couldn't believe. The old lady. She. Wu Zuelan was dumbfounded. She couldn't imagine that the kind old lady who held her hand and affectionately called her daughter would harm her. Didn't she still introduce herself to Yi Zhonghai? How could she? The doctor said it's caused by musk, which used to be the most dirty thing in the backyard of wealthy families. I don't know who the old lady used to be, but when I came to this courtyard, she was just like the wife of a wealthy family. Lao Jia and He Taiqing should know something. Upon hearing Yi Zhonghai's words, Wu Zuelan remembered that the fragrance she had asked several times was indeed only present when the old lady came. She thought it was an illusion, or that the old lady had used some fragrance herself. It's a bit chilly, she thought the old lady had come up with such an idea to come and see her. As the head of the family, how dare she do this? She doesn't know this is the child we finally hoped for, how could she be so cruel? She probably didn't want us to have children, or rather, she introduced you to me with this kind of mindset. The old lady has no children. She used to treat Yi Zhonghai well, but this time, Yi Zhonghai was already shrewd and quickly figured it out. Just like Jia Zhang's proposal to seek retirement from his teacher, at that time Yi Zhonghai had considered the issue of future retirement if there were really no children. Therefore, Yi Zhonghai naturally hoped that the other party would have no worries from elders, and that the daughter-in-law would have better control. It would be even better if there were no offspring. Obviously, the old lady also had this kind of heart. In a sense, the two of them had the same idea of venting their anger. However, Yi Zhonghai did not expect that he was so shrewd that he only realized the old lady's malicious intentions until now, almost cutting off the old Yi family from his generation. He explained these to Wu Zuelan, who fell silent for a while. To some extent, did she still want to thank the old lady for this kind of thinking, which allowed her to be with Yi Zhonghai. However, in the past, she did consider her having no children and being kind to herself, wanting to treat her as a biological mother to take care of and care for the elderly. But from now on, let's forget about it. I am now telling the hospital that you were hospitalized because you are old and pregnant, and it is difficult to take care of yourself. The old lady is still pretending not to know. She is doing something covert, and even if she says it, there is no evidence. In the future, I will find a plan to settle the accounts. He appears friendly on the surface, but without children, he lacks confidence. In addition, in this era, he has a good reputation and benefits, but he is not a good person. If he doesn't return it, he will really be bullied. I know now. I used to be grateful to her for harming my child, but when the grudges and grievances subside, I'll just treat her like an ordinary neighbor. Well, hello, take care of the baby. I'll go to work first. I have explained it to my wife, and with precautions in place, my husband and wife are united. Yi Zhonghai is also much more at ease. The old lady's plan is not feasible, and she dare not reach out any further. As the new year approaches, the work in the factory is quite busy. Chapter 9. Yi Taiqing preparing to run away. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On this day, Yi Zhonghai returned from work relatively late. After preparing dinner at the hospital and returning, there were no more people on the street. He unexpectedly saw someone sneaking in at the entrance of the courtyard. Yi Taiqing. Seeing it as an acquaintance, Yi Zhonghai didn't shout out, "Why don't you leave the main entrance and learn from thieves?" Lao Yi. Yi Taiqing trembled with fear and saw that it was Yi Zhonghai. He put down half of the climbing wall and came out to pull Yi Zhonghai to an empty corner. What's wrong? I just found a widow and was sneaking around. Yi Zhonghai couldn't help but smile as he looked around with his head exploring his mind. He is busy taking care of his pregnant wife every day and doesn't pay much attention to the gossip in the yard or factory, but there are also rumors that Yi Taiqing has been involved in an affair with a widow and even stays up at night. The factory has also taken several leave requests. But they are widowed one by one. Pay attention to the influence, it's not a big deal to be together. Let's live together. We need to consider the opinions of the pillars and rainwater. Lao Yi, let me tell you something. Don't say anything. I plan to leave with widow Bai and go to Baoding. Taiqing confirmed that no one was speaking around. Hey, you're really with that widow? Wait, you said you're going to Baoding. Upon reflection, Yi Zhonghai was surprised. No, your workplace and children are all in Beijing. What are you doing in Baoding? Is that widow so fragrant? She needs to take so much trouble to go to Baoding and keep people behind. Why can't Taiqing's ability still support her? But the fact proves that widows only have more fragrance. I don't plan on taking care of the children, I'll just leave on my own. Cough cough cough, you're crazy, aren't you? How much rain does it rain on the pillar? You don't even want a child. You're a widow's helper. Has Taiqing gone crazy? No, even if he's in a hurry, he's not stupid. Seeing Yi Zhonghai looking at him like a madman, after thinking about it, he still explained, Old Yi, you know the composition division of the past period, right? It is only the second year since the founding of the People's Republic of China, and many things in the country are being reformed. Previously, in order to deal with feudal landlords, reclaim national land, and promote land reform, a class composition division was introduced. If a family owns land and its members do not participate in labor, relying solely on land rent income or hiring agricultural workers to cultivate, it belongs to the landlord. If a family owns land and although they also charge rent or hire farmers, they and their family members also participate in labor, becoming wealthy farmers. If a family owns land but is basically self-sufficient and does not charge rent, they belong to the category of middle peasants. If a family has very little land and relies mainly on working, they become poor farmers. If there is no land at home and one relies solely on working for a living, they are called hired farmers. Yi Zhonghai took a look and found out that he was divided into 3 generations of hired farmers. If there were no safety issues, he didn't look at anything else. So, what is the problem with the family? But his family is not just a hired cook like his own, so it shouldn't be a problem to divide them into hired farmers. Is there anything he doesn't know? Lao Yi, my brother believes you, so let me tell you. There is indeed a problem. I will leave early now and leave the house for them. I have already settled their composition in the past few days. Silly Zhu also has 16 or 18. He can go to the factory to take over his cooking skills when the time comes, and I will explain it to the factory. Afterwards, I will send you some money every month to take care of the rainwater for Silly Zhu. When the time comes, just tell the public that I don't want children and widows to run away, and it won't affect the composition of the 2 children. I just need to ask Lao Yi to help me take care of the children. Taiqing took out a stack of money from his pocket, about 1 million, and was reluctant to hand it over to Yi Zhonghai. He had originally planned to talk to Yi Zhonghai about this in a few days, but now it's just right to meet him. He can rest assured that this courtyard is only Yi Zhonghai. The old lady reminded him in a timely manner that the 10 family dishes in his hand used to be official dishes. If he didn't run away early, he might be dragging on the silly pillar's reign if investigated. Yi Zhonghai looked at the money ticket in his hand with an uncertain expression, and finally nodded and agreed. Thanks a lot, Lao Yi. I have a recipe for recuperating myself, which I got from an acquaintance who used to make tonic diet. You can ask Silly Zhu to raise it for your sister. In law. Taiqing then took out a piece of yellow paper. The paper had been well kept for a long time, which was also his insurance for the 2 children to get closer to Yi's family. After all, the list of tonic diet could not be separated from the cook. When are you planning to leave, Lao He? Next, Yi Zhonghai asked again. Depending on the situation, it may only be a few days. When Yi Zhonghai got home, he counted the money, which was just 1 million yuan. As for taking care of the 2 children in the hospital, it was nothing. As for this tonic diet, Yi Zhonghai looked at it, but he didn't know any Chinese medicine inside. He hid it carefully. As for whether he would take it to Silly Column in the future, let's see it again. Alone, he also pondered for a moment. Taiqing said that there was a problem with his identity, which should be due to some Tan family dish. However, it was not his business, so he didn't care about it. He just managed his own small family well. Chapter 10. Lu Family Status. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Approaching the end of the year, the steel rolling mill is preparing to pay wages for vacation. The night before the payment, families in the courtyard were chatting in the empty courtyard at the entrance, while wives watched their children play and talked about the wages and annual benefits that the factory will pay tomorrow, as well as the New Year's goods to be purchased. Brother Yi, today is still the first time I have returned to the hospital. Will my sister-in-law come back for the Chinese New Year? Because he rushed to deliver food to his wife at the hospital, everyone has become accustomed to him being the first worker in the factory to come back. No, it's almost 6 months old and it's not convenient to have a big belly. Okay, next spring, if there are more dolls in the courtyard, it will be lively. When it comes to children, Yi Zhonghai joked with them for a while. During this period, Wu Zuelan has been fond of eating sour and spicy foods. There is a high possibility that this baby will be a son, but Yi Zhonghai did not mention it in the hospital. Thinking of the chubby guy who has been busy with work all day, Yi Zhonghai is still full of energy. Go home and prepare dinner. The workers returned one after another, and each family prepared dinner. The courtyard was close enough to smell anything they ate, and there was not much oil or water for everyone. However, the main courtyard occasionally smelled the aroma of meat. One is Yi Zhonghai, his wife-in-law needs to supplement nutrition, and the other is Taiqing, his family is a cook. In any era, no one lacks the taste of a cook when they are hungry, and sometimes there is a delicious meat. Another example is the Jia family. I cried poverty all day and ended up secretly eating a few meals of meat every month. If it weren't for the discovery of the Zhang family in the neighboring hall, I wouldn't have known that the Jia family's life was so prosperous. However, considering the size of Jia Zhang's family, it seems that everyone is not surprised. However, since then, the Jia family's reputation in the courtyard has declined significantly. After all, as someone who still has the means to eat meat every month, what's the point of deceiving their family into not having enough food? Today, the scent of meat came from the backyard. At Lu Haizhong's home, a few children drooled over the braised pork belly and scrambled eggs on the table. The second Lu Guangqian was young and couldn't help but reach out to grab the meat. He was hit by a chopstick with a loud bang in his bangs. Did you eat it? A red mark struck, and Lu Guangqian trembled as he withdrew his hand. The pain made tears roll in his eyes, but he dared not speak. Afraid of his father hitting him. Nodding in satisfaction with the bangs, today is the boss's birthday, and he's 1 year older after his birthday. I asked your mother to prepare this, and we need to work hard when we're together. Dad, don't worry, I will definitely work hard to get into high school next year's middle school entrance exam, and strive to become a cadre in the future. You and your mother can wait to become cadres' parents. Lu Guangqi's words sound very pleasant, but in fact, his grades after graduation are all mysterious, let alone taking the high school entrance exam. Well, these days high school students are either leaders or cadres, work hard. Lu Haizhong nodded, he is accustomed to imitating the official accent when speaking. Preparing meat and vegetables for birthdays is also rare, but do you think it's because Lu Haizhong values children? Actually, it's not that. He only values his eldest son Lu Guangqi, who is the eldest son and the eldest son. He strongly supports the way everyone used to manage their families in the past. The eldest son is of utmost importance for the continuation of a family. As long as the eldest son has success, the family can survive. In this era, there is naturally nothing legitimate or illegitimate, and the eldest son is what he values. He is kind to the boss and has never been beaten or scolded much at such a young age, but it's not necessarily true that the second and third are under 4 years old. Aunt Lu took all of this seriously. Although she felt sorry for seeing her second son beaten, she never opposed her own man's thoughts. This will use chopsticks dipped in the juice of braised pork belly to coax Lu Guangfu, the third in his arms, to be afraid. There is not much braised pork belly on the table, just 7 yuan. Thanks to the fact that everyone has enough food to eat in these days, this little dish can also be made. Braised pork belly in brown sauce is not white enough. Most of the fat meat is not greasy at this time. On the contrary, because of the lack of oil and water, fat meat is more popular than dry lean meat. Lu Haizhong divided the 7 pieces of braised pork belly into 4 pieces, 2 pieces of Lu Guangqi and 1 piece of Lu Ant. Lu Guangtian was so happy that Lu Haizhong bit some lean meat for him. As for Lu Guangfu, it was just a taste. Another scrambled egg, 1 egg in a small plate, is usually served as a dish in the bangs, and Lu Guangqi has the opportunity to taste it. Speaking of which, I noticed that Lao Yi has been asking Silly Zhu how to make sour cabbage these days. The sour and spicy girl in the Yi family is probably a boy, isn't she? Aunt Lu said as she thought of something. Lu Hai was unhappy when he heard it. Just eat and talk about it. What's the point? He has a son who is even better than the 3 in my family. And they haven't been born yet, who can say for sure? Aunt Lu quickly shut up. Several pieces of braised pork belly were eaten with oil. Suddenly, several people heard a commotion coming from the main courtyard. What's going on?